Good morning, everyone in virtual land and everyone who's in the hearing room with us this morning. We are grateful that you are present this morning for us to review the commission's notices again, and we appreciate all the feedback that we've received in docket number 2020-247-A. This is the regulation review of the commission's notices under Regulation 103-817, subsection C. I'm Jocelyn Boyd, and we had several entities who filed comments where we'll give you an opportunity, provide you an opportunity if you would like to expound on your written comments. And for those who did not file written comments, we'll give you an opportunity this morning, of course, to provide feedback, oral feedback. All right, so everyone, I have a document, a summary of my reading of the comments, the written comments that I would like to review first. And then you will see in the document that Ms. Thomas is going to display for me where I have some questions in certain rows and columns so that you'll have advance notice of areas of interest to me. There's several members of the clerk's office who, of course, write those beautiful notices and make sure that they're served on the right entities. And they are present in the hearing room also because this is an important matter to the commission and to the clerk's office, of course. And I might, throughout the course of this workshop this morning, receive comments from them too, questions, if they want further explanation regarding statements that you've made. So I hope that you will indulge us and allow us to do that. Let's see what else. So what I'd like to do first, it's real short, and hopefully it will kind of propel us to a deeper level of discussion after you see the summary. Yeah, let's start with the summary that I have crafted. Ms. Thomas, would you display that, please? Okay, everyone, we're going to start here. And on the y-axis, of course, you can see no, that's the x-axis, excuse me. You can see at the top recommendation and then the different entities that have filed written comments. On the y-axis, of course, we have the specific recommendations based on my reading of the comments that I think you want us to consider this morning, and anything else, of course, that I have not included, please feel free to mention those points. All right, so we'll start with just the recommendations that I gathered.
Hey, Jocelyn?
Yes.
So this is Roger with the Department of Consumer Affairs. We can't see anything.
You can't? Okay, hold on a second. Roger can't see anything.
I can't either, Jocelyn. This is Peg Fox.
Give 1 minute. They're working on it, okay, everybody? Thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome.
I'll give this to you, Chad, after I'm finished.
This is Melissa with the PSC. Can you all see the South Carolina sign?
Yes.
Okay, great. And now you can see what's being published.
Can you see it now?
Her document.
Well, yes, if you feature her as the main speaker, I mean, you got to adjust the view, because if it's a grid, it will be too small.
Okay, but you can
Yeah.
see the document.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Roger and who was that? Peg. Can you see now? Mr. Hall and Ms. Fox, can you see now?
I can.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let us know if you have anybody, please let us know. Don't let us continue to proceed and you can't read or see something. Please interrupt me at any time.
Jocelyn, this is Katie Brown.
Hey.
We can see it, but it's very small.
It's very small.
Or at least I can.
Okay.
It's very small for me.
All right.
Yeah, and this is John Roof. I can see it, but I can't read it.
Okay, well, I want
If I can interject, if you change the layout so that Jocelyn is like your main speaker, then you'll be able to see it. I had to do that.
Yeah, there's a little ellipsis. You can't move to stage.
Thank you.
This
Mr.
is Pia Powers. I can see it. I've moved Jocelyn to the stage. I'm not sure if there's something else going on in the document. It's like flashing a lot, as if the cursor's moving. I'm not sure if someone's moving within the document to cause that or not, but it's.
Okay, while they're working on that, thank you, Pia. Ms. Powers, Mr. Roof, how's it going for you?
I can see that now, although that flashing is a little disconcerting.
Okay, let's see what we can do about that. Yeah, I think that's what they're concerned about. I'll read out my document. Everybody, what we're going to do, because of the flashing, we have another source that I'm going to use as a camera in the room, and I'm going to place these documents under that camera, okay? And then I'll check back with you to make sure that you can read that, but the flashing will disappear. I'll go over there. I'll go over there because I'm going to have to move it. Yes, I'm gonna do this 4 pages. How's that? Is that good, Melissa? Thank you.
Yes, speaking.
Okay, everybody, what does that look like? Can you read that? Mr. Roof, Ms. Powers, Ms. Fox, Mr. Hall, how does that look?
This is Ms. Powers. I can read it now. That's much better. Thank you.
Mr. Roof?
Much better, thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate you.
No problem. We have plan A's, B's, C's, D's, E's, and F's around here. But anyway, we'll start with our matrix here, okay, everybody? So as you can see on the x-axis, in addition to the word recommendation, You'll see the entities, Department of Consumer Affairs, Lockhart Power Company, Dominion Energy, South Carolina. I think somebody might want to mute. Okay. Thank you. Piedmont Natural Gas Company, Duke Energy Carolinas LLC, and Duke Energy Progress LLC, Southwest Water Utilities. All right, so we'll start with the minimum size 12 font for the notice, with the exception of the next two rows. And the Department of Consumer Affairs, I think, lists that as a recommendation. The Department of Consumer Affairs also recommends the main heading font size be 18 point. And there's some primary headings that the Department of Consumer Affairs included in its sample. They recommend that the font size be 14. Department of Consumer Affairs also some below the headings. And Department of Consumer Affairs, I will come back. You can see there where I just have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you related to the entire application name, how you feel about that, where is the proper place to put that, if anywhere in the notice. Is the example that you gave in your filing just for rate cases? And then I've also pulled a recent fuel case and PGA case, which I'm not going to discuss substantively, but it was limited. It was no more, those two were no more than 2 pages, and just your overall thoughts about those notices. I do have examples to show you. And then there was one other issue that I wanted to address with you. Sorry, I'm trying to move this, y'all. Okay. What about other change of service or terms of service when a rate case is filed? The need for additional reference to those other terms. You know, perhaps it's not necessarily an adjustment in a rate, but there are some other terms of the company's tariff that change. How do you think that the notice should reference those changes in a general way? So that's just something for you to think about. And I didn't mark anybody else as including comments in the written comments regarding these recommendations. I'll move to the next page. Thank you, Melissa, for adjusting this for me. I think that's better. Okay, so the next, Department of Consumer Affairs also recommends changing the main subheading. The Department of Consumer Affairs recommends that instead of the table where we listed the docket number below certain questions, they recommend that we now reinstate that basically with the heading. So it'll be like our old notices. Also, the Department of Consumer Affairs recommends changing the summary to make it simpler, including the impact on the average household bill. Lockhart Power, I think, makes some reference to this recommendation as it relates to the bill being simple, more simple. Not the bill, excuse me, the notice. And then Piedmont Natural Gas has some suggestions, which I think I've captured here in its column. For example, what is this case/docket about? And I only use the word case because of, I think, some prior meetings we've had where some members of the public might not understand what the word docket means. Or what is the commission considering in this case/docket? Piedmont, I think, also recommends that for gas rate cases that we use, instead of 100 therms a month, the 50 therms per month for the impact on the household bill. Ms. Powers, is Mr. McPherson available? I forgot to ask. I didn't see his name. I saw where you were present.
It's just going to be me today responding.
Okay, awesome. All right. And then for Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress, similar concerns. Based on my reading, what is this case/docket about, or what is the commission considering in this case/docket? Also, another question I think that Duke Energy Carolinas wants to discuss, both Carolinas and Progress. What are the key components of the proposal filed by whatever entity, including any proposed rate changes? Right? Thank you, Melissa. Next, Summary of the commission's role. I think that Lockhart Power mentioned that they think Lockhart thinks it's important for the commission to include that information in its notices. Department of Consumer Affairs and Lockhart Power Company opine that the commission should include a link directly to the proposed rate changes, an electronic link to the proposed rate changes in the notice. Both Department of Consumer Affairs and Lockhart Power Company indicate that the commission should continue to include an electronic link to all the filings for that particular case or docket. The Department of Consumer Affairs, in its markup notice, revised notice, included separate tables. We had they were long tables, but they included a lot of information. And so Department of Consumer Affairs recommends separating those tables in the notice and to include larger font and bold type. Lockhart Power Company, I think, mentioned some information about making sure we include a timetable for the customers regarding public hearings. And then Southwest Water Utilities, based on my reading of your comments, I had a question about your position related to the Department of Consumer Affairs' proposal regarding the separate tables. I just wanted some feedback from you based on your comments, so I'll get to you at that point. And then the lowered grade reading level, Department of Consumer Affairs mentions that in its written comments. You all want me to go back to the computer? Okay, sure. Everybody, I'm moving again, physically. We're trying to see if the electronic version will work now. Oh, it's still blinking? Okay, I'll go back to my chair. Thank you. Thank you for trying. And then, okay, so that's the only written comment. Department of Consumer Affairs mentioned the concern about the grade reading level of our notices. Not saying that others aren't concerned about that. This is my last page, page 4. Okay, there's some concern about the length of the notices, our notices, and the Department of Consumer Affairs, Lockhart Power Company, Dominion Energy South Carolina, Duke Energy Carolinas, Duke Energy Progress, and Southwest Water Utilities express concern that at times our notices are more than 2 pages in length, and that it is their recommendation that we refrain from issuing notices that are longer than 2 pages in length. The next recommendation is regarding modifying the notice for the newspaper, and that concern is in the written comments of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Southwest Water Utilities. I think wants to have some discussion regarding whether or not the entities should be required to publish notices in newspapers versus the commission maybe publishing the notice on its website. So we'll talk about that. Department of Consumer Affairs and Lockhart Power Company support the commission including contact information for questions in its notices. And then finally, I had a question for the Department of Consumer Affairs because of your notice. I really appreciate all the hard work you and your team did, Mr. Hall, on the notice that you filed with the commission. I just had one question. I did not see the legal authority under APA mentioned, and so I have a note there. I want to ask you the reason, or maybe there is no reason. It just wasn't included. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Does anybody, when I checked the virtual desk in the back, we had representatives from everyone who filed comments, including Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner from Lockhart Power Company. Are you still present, Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner?
Yes, we are, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then from Dominion Energy South Carolina, Mr. Burgess, if you want to take the podium and be recognized, you may.
Good morning, Jocelyn. I'm Chad Burgess. I'm appearing on behalf of Dominion Energy, South Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Thank you for being present. And then, Ms. Powers, are you still present on behalf of Piedmont Natural Gas Company?
Yes, I am.
All right. And Ms. Brown, are you still here on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas LLC and Duke Energy Progress LLC?
Good morning, Jocelyn. Yes, I am.
Good morning. And Mr. Terraney, on behalf of Southwest Water Utilities?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, on behalf of Department of Consumer Affairs?
Yes, ma'am, I'm still here.
Great. Mr. Roof, are you still present? I saw your name on the screen in the back. Are you still present?
Present.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And Office of Regulatory Staff, I just saw your agency name. I don't know who's present. Maybe Mr. Huber, General Counsel Huber?
Good morning, Ms. Boyd. Yes, Chris Huber here for ORS, and I'm joined by Landon Masters, who's our Community Outreach and Communications Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I said, I checked the screen in the back, and I knew Mr. Burgess was present, but I wanted for the record to, the public needs to officially know that everybody's present. So we can proceed, everyone, based on the agenda that was published on the website now, if for you to expound on your comments, and then once you finish, for example, for Department of Consumer Affairs, you've seen, where my initial questions that I want to talk about, and then our staff could have some other questions that we want to just, we might need further explanation to understand your position. So we'll start with Lockhart Power Company, Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Good morning, everyone. I'm Peg Fox here on behalf of Lockhart Power Company, and also participating is David Turner, who is the company's business controller. We appreciate the opportunity to participate in this docket and provide comments. We support the Commission's efforts to make customer bill insert notices and utility rate cases more readable and user-friendly. A major thing you saw, one issue on Jocelyn's chart that had checks almost across the board was, we believe it's very important to keep these notices to 2 pages or less, which would be 1 page printed front and back. And that's important to keep the utilities costs down, which ultimately keeps the customer's costs down, and also to make them more readable. I mean, we all know we get these, million-page notices in the mail and they go right in the trash. So we think that's a very important point. We think it's important, rather than just saying the template that was sent out was too long because there were spaces to insert tables and things, and it already was almost 3 pages, and we were concerned about the length of the template that was distributed. And rather than just saying it's too long, it's got some repetitive information, we thought it would be helpful to outline what a notice should include. And it should include, obviously, the essential information without being too simplistic or too overwhelming on the one hand or the other hand, that stick to the essential information, make use of links where it makes sense to do so, and that way that can keep it down to a manageable length. We agree with the consumer advocate and Mr. Terraney. I think both commented that this notice, this sort of a template is probably not appropriate for publication purposes, and that it should not serve that purpose. We agree with the consumer advocate. Actually, we had a list of what essential information should be included in a notice, and we appreciate that the consumer advocate actually put together a proposed template that is 2 pages or less, and actually it sort of follows the same flow. So we did like the consumer advocate's work product as far as keeping to the essential information without providing too much detail, but making efficient use of links where consumers can go to find out more information, which in fact is the purpose of a notice, not to include everything that a consumer might possibly want to know, but to put them on notice and provide essential information so they know how this proceeding will impact them and where they can go to find out more information. So we did like that. I will make one comment about font size. I am concerned a little bit about mandating particular font sizes, I think that would be better probably coming as a recommended font size for these things, because I'm a little concerned that there would be a conflict between keeping it to 2 pages and strictly following a particular font size. And it may be that a heading can be reduced slightly, or the font size could be reduced to like an 11.5 or something in order to get it on 2 pages. And I think we just don't want to have a mandated font size that makes these notices go now to a second page that now doubles your cost. So with that, I think that is all we have, very brief. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to participate, and both David and I are available for any questions that the staff might have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner. So the only extra note that I had was I don't know why I wrote the timetable for customer public hearings, but I think you just stated that you are okay with the proposal that the Department of Consumer Affairs includes in its filing, and the format, I should say, for dates and times for public hearings, location of the hearings, how to pre-register. You and your client are okay with the proposal in that regard?
Yes, I believe that was very concise, and I thought it looks good.
Thank you very much. Staff, do you all have anything else that I've left out? You do? Okay, I'll be right back, everybody. So everybody, the concern, I was just talking to some clerk's office employees, and they were recently working on a public notice, and the increased size of font is what they indicate would cause the notice to be longer than 2 pages. So Roger, if we can just talk about that a little bit more when it's your turn. I think sometimes staff does use a smaller font size. Now, with your changes, that we would delete some certain information, but that can cause the notice to be longer than 2 pages. So that was the comment.
Understood. I guess we can wait till my turn, but I will say that was merely a suggestion. I think we would say the 12-point font at a minimum is, I think that should be required. But as far as headings, that was just a recommendation. And for the example we gave, it happened to work and still maintain 2 pages. But certainly, we don't think 18, and I think the other was 14 should be mandatory.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hall. Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for being present, and thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Mr. Burgess.
Good morning, Jocelyn and members of the commission staff. Again, I'm Chad Burgess. I'm here on behalf of Dominion Energy South Carolina. And to begin with, the company appreciates the efforts that the commission and the staff are undertaking with respect to improve the readability and improve the adequacy of the notice that is provided to customers by way of a bill insert. As you all well know, newspaper publication is a manner in which we publish the notice. And then also it's within the commission's discretion to require a utility to provide the notice to every single customer. And that typically does occur. There have been a few instances where a bill insert wasn't required, but lately I think the commission has been requiring bill inserts with respect to all the dockets that have been initiated at the commission, either by way of the commission themselves or by the utility. But the long and short of that is we certainly do appreciate the effort that is being undertaken by the commission to improve the readability and understandability of a notice. Ms. Fox is right. Typically, bill inserts, at least at my house, get tossed into the trash can and not read. And certainly, if it's the commission's desire to grab the attention of a utility consumer, then it certainly seems to me that the notice that's being discussed here today may well, in fact, do that, given with the fact of the the tables that are on there, and also with respect to the font size and the color of ink that is used on there. And I'll touch on that here in a second. Dominion Energy, we're the vehicle, and all the other utilities are the vehicle by which the commission uses to communicate the notice. The notice, it's unmistakable. That's the commission's work product. The commission has been very clear with utilities in the past that it's their work product, and they do not want customers drawing the conclusion that that is a document that is being sent to them by the utility, even though, again, we are the vehicle by which that is done. Given the fact that we're the vehicle by which that is done, there is a cost associated with that. And we have indicated in our prior filings back in May of last year, and also in our most recent comment letter of last week, that it certainly is our desire to inform customers about dockets and cases in the most economical way possible. And again, the bill insert is certainly a way to do that versus a special mailing, which we talked about a year ago. If some of the template that's currently put in front of the utilities today is 2.5 pages long, it does not have any information that's been populated into that document with respect to the specific items that need to be discussed in a notice. The concern that Dominion Energy has is as that notice is populated with the relevant information, the notice is going to grow in length, and likewise it may grow in length by adjusting the font that is being suggested by some of the other parties here. If that's the commission's will, then Dominion Energy will certainly exercise that will and will follow commission's order with that regard. However, it's important to know, and we've said in our comment letter, that as that notice grows, so does the expense that comes along with producing that notice. Historically, the company has been able to take the commission's notice and put it on a bill insert on front and back, and insert that as part of the monthly bill of a customer, which saves on postage. Currently, the company is charged a flat rate with respect to its bills. However, that flat rate is not static, meaning that as you increase the weight of that bill by including more material in that envelope, the potential for the price to increase is great. And currently, the company, anything over 3.5 ounces will push the bill into another class of service with respect to the post office. So that means that the postage is going to go up. Now, in our comment letter, we didn't really talk about the postage. We really focused on the fact that if the notice is required to be published and produced on more than one piece of paper, there's a cost associated with that. There's a cost for ink, and there's also a cost for paper. And we also indicated in our comment letter, as with everything that all of us are experiencing with 7% inflation today, the cost of goods and procuring paper is increasing. And we have seen that at Dominion Energy, just from going from a January bill insert from a matter that was noticed in January to another matter that was just noticed roughly 30 days later into February and March. We've seen the price of that bill insert double because of the cost of paper. So the company wants to provide the commission and its staff with that data point, because as you decide what that template should look like, we also think it's important that you should know what the cost of that is going to be. And as Lockhart Power's counsel very correctly stated, that's an expense that is borne by the company at the time of production. But ultimately, that cost will be passed on to consumers and customers through a general rate proceeding whenever that expense is requested for recovery by the utility. And lastly, I would just add, I did notice in the comment, or excuse me, in the template, that there is color ink that is in the template. And again, as you all know, just by using printers at your home, if you print things in color, it certainly increases the cost, and that is no different for procuring the services of a printer to produce a bill insert that contains red ink or blue ink. That will increase the cost as well. So Jocelyn, those are, and commission staff, those are the comments of Dominion Energy, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm able to answer with respect to things that are on your mind regarding the comments that we provided to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. So I have a copy of a notice. It's not 2 pages. That was issued this year. Well, it is 2, but it's not 2 full pages. And I see the logo at the bottom is our logo is in color, the agency's logo, but also links, hyperlinks to contact at psc.sc.gov and then the commission's website. So what you're saying is that your company incurs additional costs for even the blue ink for the email address and the web address?
I don't think that we published that notice with blue ink on it. I think the company has taken the position that it's the information that is the most important, not necessarily the color of a hyperlink that may be in there. However, on the notice that was presented to the utilities back in January, there is my recollection, there is a red in the upper left
read
corner.
Carefully. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
Oh.
To the extent that the commission says this must be published in red, then obviously we'll do that, and then we'll follow that direction. I don't think the commission has required hyperlinks to be published in blue or some other color, and it's my understanding that the company has not, in an effort to keep costs down, has not printed those hyperlinks in a blue or some other color that may ultimately appear when we get the notice from the commission staff.
Yeah. I know the commission staff's transmittal letter does not indicate that the notices has to be published in any color. I'm not aware of a commission order either. But,
neither am I.
okay.
That's exactly right. But
Okay.
but to the extent that I presume at some point that, and maybe wrongly, that the template will be presented to the commission for their review and consideration, and they may ultimately issue an order granting the commission staff the authority to produce this document or use this template, and thereby the commission staff instructing the utility to publish it as exactly as it's laid out. And the only point we're making is if there's flexibility to not have to publish something in color, then I think that would be helpful from a cost perspective. If the commission decides that, we think it's actually very important and we need to grab somebody's attention and put something in red or put something in blue, then obviously the company will do that. But again, it's just a function of going into a matter with your eyes wide open and understanding that there would be an increase in cost with respect to the color of the ink. As trivial as that may sound, it does add up when you're communicating with 780,000 customers on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you for those points. Commission staff, do you have any follow-up? Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you.
All right, next, Ms. Powers for Piedmont Natural Gas Company.
Good morning, Ms. Boyd.
Good morning.
My name is Pia Powers. I'm the Managing Director of Gas Rates and Regulatory for Piedmont Natural Gas. The comments that Piedmont filed in this docket were brief. We focused on 2 matters of content pertaining to the template. The first matter concerns the heading, what is the company asking the commission to approve? We thought it would be more helpful to generalize that statement, should that header be a standard header, simply because some proceedings aren't initiated through a company ask. Certainly any proceeding involving the company may have bearing to customers, but the phrasing, what is the company asking the commission to approve, felt it would be more helpful to generalize given the variety of nature of proceedings. And we recommended 2. I think those were also recommended in Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress's comments. And the 2 alternative phrases were, what is this docket or case about, and what is the commission considering in this docket or case? We're open, of course, to use case instead of docket for that phrasing. The other matter of content that Piedmont recommends, it pertains to the quantification of the impact of the company's request or the impact of this case, any particular case, on the average household bill. the template indicated that the average household bill for a natural gas utility customer should be computed on the basis of 100 therms of natural gas usage by that household per month. For a natural gas utility, Piedmont in particular, the usage by customers, by a residential customer, by a household, I'm going to use those words interchangeably when I speak today. That usage is not uniform per month. Usage is very weather sensitive, and it depends on the particular end use equipment that the customer has in the home, end use equipment for natural gas. And so in general, our residential profile, our customers use significantly more natural gas in the winter period when they're operating natural gas equipment for space heating, and less natural gas in the summer period, as you would not be space heating your home during that period. So when we, again, I'm in the area of rates and regulatory, so I'm very familiar with our customer usage as a class. So for residential customers on Piedmont system, they typically, on average, the use annually is about 570 therms. So level with more happening in the winter, less in the summer. So looking at that on average then, levelizing throughout the year, we feel that 50 therms per year would be a better, more applicable usage amount in order to quantify the impact to customers rather than 100. Simply because if we were to have on the bill message, a quantification of the impact at 100 therms per month, it's really doubling the impact. And we find that would be misleading, doubling the impact of a rate increase or a rate decrease. And we certainly don't want to mislead customers in any way with this. Overall, we're very supportive of the Commission's efforts to make these regulatory notices easier for customers to understand. And so this is an opportunity to reduce confusion, not to introduce new confusion. And lastly, I will echo the concerns that Mr. Burgess just raised for Dominion Energy South Carolina, and in particular the cost concerns, the detail that he described around the nature of the printing costs, the mailing costs, the impact of the ink. Piedmont is in a similar situation, and so those cost concerns are also applicable to a notice that Piedmont would need to provide as a bill insert as ordered by this commission. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. I don't think that I have any. Thank you for the, we based that, the 100 therms based just on our internal knowledge here. Did the best estimate we could when we provided that information. So thank you for providing an update to us regarding your recommendation to use the 50 therms per month instead of the 100 therms. We appreciate that because we can't talk to you directly. So I appreciate you catching that.
You're welcome.
And let's see. That's it right now. Thank you, Ms. Powers.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on then to Ms. Brown, who represents Duke Energy Carolinas, LLC, and Duke Energy Progress, LLC. Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Katie Brown. I'm in-house counsel for Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here today to comment on the efforts that the Commission is undertaking to make sure that consumers are understanding the proceedings that are happening before the Commission, and that customers are more easily able to understand what's going on in the substance of those proceedings as well. We do have some concerns, which you've really already gone over this morning, that we outlined in our comments, just about the heading, what is, the utility asking the Commission to approve. As Ms. Powers mentioned, this could be misleading to some customers because there are filings that the companies are required to make. For example, in the fuel proceedings, IRPs, avoided cost, that are, required by statute and the companies, they're not discretionary for the companies. So we had proposed some alternative language. What is this docket about? What is the commission considering in this docket? Or what are the key components of the proposal filed by the utility, including any proposed rate changes? The second point that I wanted to make, and we mentioned this in our comments as well, as some representatives for the other utilities have mentioned, we believe that bill insert should be limited to 2 pages, and that will not only help keep costs down, which, in turn keeps customer rates down. We think that customers are more likely to read and be able to comprehend a shorter notice. We're a little bit concerned that if they see a 4-page notice that, it might go in the trash, as Mr. Burgess suggested, and that we can include the information that needs to be there in a shorter form. Outside of the comments that the written comments that we filed, I would echo Mr. Burgess's and Ms. Powers' comments about cost concerns. That longer notices will definitely be costly, not only from a bill insert perspective, but if we are required to, when we are required to publish those in newspapers, they're already very expensive. And the longer the notice, the more expensive for both bill inserts and for newspaper publication. I believe that concludes my comments. That will conclude my comments this morning, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have that I can answer, or I can take the question back and file a response in the docket if I don't have the answer.
Okay. Ms. Brown, I don't think I have any other questions right now for you. Staff, do you have any questions for Ms. Brown? Okay. Thank you for being present.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask Ms. Brown, I did want to ask you one thing though, and I will go back to Ms. Powers. So I want to ask you both. If you have reviewed Mr. Hall's notice, he just has asked one question at the beginning, which is, why is this notice important? Would that question cover your question, your alternative questions, such as, what is this case about? What is the commission considering in this case? What are the key components of the proposal? Would the question that the Department of Consumer Affairs includes, would that be sufficient? Why is this notice important?
Jocelyn, I think if the why is this notice important is subbing for the what is insert company name asking the commission to approve, I think that would encompass and address our concerns if there are some details below it.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Powers, may I go back to you too? I wanted to ask you the same question. If Mr. Hall's recommendation of including why is this notice important and then including more detailed information below that heading, would that suffice? Would that take care of your recommendations, your recommended questions, such as what is this case about? What is the commission considering in this case?
I believe it would. Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Next, Mr. Turaney.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
First
sir.
of all,
We can hear you very well. Thank you.
good. Sometimes I have problems with that. I will begin with the comments that we filed on behalf of the Southwest Water Utilities and reiterate them, explain them. Number one point that we've heard widespread agreement on is a 2-page notice format that would allow us to include a 1-page bill insert or even a 1-page mailing, because we understand that bill inserts, because of timing, and not always feasible. But in any case, we think 1 page is more understandable. It's more efficient in terms of reaching the customer. It's less likely to be thrown out. So we encourage a 2-page limit. And if that requires adjustments to fonts or what have you, I think that trade-off is probably worth it. I, so in that vein, what I would say is the font sizes recommendations are useful, but I would leave it to the discretion of the clerk's office to achieve the most efficient and readable notice you can find. There are some ways that we believe the notices could be shortened, and I would commend the consumer advocate for taking a stab at this, and I'm also flattered that he lavished so much attention on my client, PY Island Utilities, formatting his notice. One thing though, in looking at the proposed notice, and I think this would be true as we pointed out to the present notice format of the clerk, is I believe the detailed instructions for signups could be deleted. It would be simple enough to have an online form that requests that information when somebody wants to sign up, instead of laying it out in the notice. I think people are used to getting that kind of information when they sign up for things. Perhaps if they wanted to sign up to speak by email and communications, PSC, SC, that could be arranged in such a way that there's an automatic reply with a sign-in sheet, sort of like your Survey Monkeys, and that would be more efficient. And the point of that is not to deny people this information, but it's that it looks to me like it would free up probably about a fifth of this notice, which could be used to include other information that may be required. What I do commend the consumer advocate for doing here is providing a link to a complete rate schedule instead of asking that all of the rates be reproduced in the notice. That we've seen in several of our cases can lead to a very complex and lengthy notice. I do have some question, and I think it's workable, but it's something we need to work out about how to calculate average increases. It appears, for instance, in the consumer advocate's notice that he's proposing in the instance of Kiowanda, we say residential water service increases averaging. I imagine he's referring to the base charge. I don't know if that would be an average or not. When it comes to consumption, different utilities are going to have vastly different average consumptions. And I don't have a strong opinion on that other than to say the utility would like some certainty as to how to calculate the averages, if that's going to be done. And that may be something that has to be done on a case-by-case basis because every utility is different, as we just heard from Piedmont Natural Gas. The third point that I think was maybe a little more unique to us is I didn't so much suggest replacing the notice by publication with a web notice, although I'd love to do that. I don't know if that's allowed under the current rules, but I would suggest directing people to a web link and shortening the notices of publication that are currently required, because basically what we're doing is saying print the bill insert. And that can either be unwieldy, as the consumer advocate demonstrated with the Post and Courier notice we recently published, or and expensive. And first of all, I'm just going to express the opinion. I'm not sure anybody's reading these published notices. And Mr. Burgess said, well, the bill inserts get tossed away in our house, but I wonder how many public notices Mr. Burgess is reading in the state newspaper. He's got different habits than we do in our household. I don't really scour the public notices on a daily basis. So until the statutes or the regulations can be amended to do away with this kind of obsolete requirement, I would suggest that we publish notices that say, you know, there's been an application for a rate case, and it could be almost the equivalent of why is this notice important? And giving everybody a web link to a much more to the perhaps the customer bill insert or to a more detailed explanation of the notice. That would make the notices cheaper and more effective. And while this may not be as big of a concern for utilities like KIU, there are many small utilities in this state that may have to come in for rate increases. And while the customers eventually pay for these newspaper notices, they're asked to front the cost of them. And I think we need to be conscious of that. The bill insert ultimately reaches the customers and is the best vehicle. A couple of other points. I agree with Mr. Burgess's point about color. Honestly, I didn't realize the Consumer Advocate's notice included color because my printer's in black and white. Also, his recommendations as to the Flesch-Kincaid scores. Again, I think those are useful, but they should be aspirational. In other words, the clerk's office needs to have the discretion because the caption of these cases alone might cause you to have a high Flesch-Kincaid score. Finally, one question I had on the Consumer Advocate's proposed notice, and honestly, I just saw it, and I don't know if it's a problem or not, but under how can I participate in this case? And then we have option 2, petitions to intervene. And it basically says, it gives 2 bullet points. One is mailing a petition in no later than February 14th, the intervention date. No problem there. But the first one is emailing contact pscsc.gov no later than Monday, February 14th. I don't know if that meets the regulatory requirements for filing a valid, timely petition to intervene, even if it is copied to the parties. I'll just throw that out. I haven't researched it, but that could be an issue.
Okay, Mr. Turner, let me make sure I'm got you. So you're saying option 2 where it says mailing the petition to intervene? No,
I'm saying emailing the petition.
Oh,
I'm not
emailing.
sure that you can intervene by email.
Oh, okay. May I say something, Mr.
Yes,
Turner?
ma'am.
I think, he might, because we use that, but that's just to give people an alternative. They can fax like their petition to the commission. They can, because typically the general rule is only attorneys can e-file at the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an electronic tool for others to use. For example, if you were having trouble e-filing, we had a glitch that day or whatever, and we needed a workaround. So you would use this email address. Now we'll have to ask Mr. Hall, but the content of it, of course, of the petition to intervene would have to comply with the commission's regulation. But that's just, yeah.
I'm sorry. Look, I have no problem with it. If I just wanted to flag it, if an intervener can intervene by emailing contact PSC, I've got no issue with it. I just wanted to say, I didn't want somebody to think they'd intervened, not because of a deadline issue. So if it's permissible, we have no objection. And those conclude my comments.
Okay. May I bog? Let me bog you one more. I need one more question. I need to ask you one more question, Mr. Terrain. Were you more concerned with your point with the substance of the petition or the fact that someone just emails contact at PSC and just says, I want to intervene? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the way you stated it, I think that'd be a problem on both ends, right? I don't know if emailing, I have not thought about this, but if I email the commission and say I want to intervene, is that a sufficient petition to intervene under the rules? I doubt it.
Okay. So I think you're talking more substantively. This is in our yes, sir. I think what you're referencing is the substance of the petition, and all petitions to intervene. Okay, I think you're saying also that if someone might think that their intervention they're automatically granted intervener status by emailing the commission, and our regulations don't say that. Petitions to intervene have to be approved.
Well, they also need to have certain content. I was raising just the whole issue. It's both procedural and substantive. I was asking initially whether one could intervene by email. I didn't know if that was allowed under the rules. Number two, I was asked, you raise a very good point. They, regardless of the method, they still have to conform to the requirements. And you would not know that from this notice. And it's a problem that we have with pro se's in a sense that, everybody wants to be a pro se until they find out what they have to do as a pro se. And then they end up dropping out or whatever. But I'm interested in not having confusion about pro se's. I'm not necessarily interested in keeping somebody from intervening or whatever, but I think that is a reasonable interpretation of this. If I want to intervene, I just have to email this board and say I want to intervene. And that does not meet the requirements of a petition for intervention.
Okay, I'm gonna get on your nerves right now, I know. So when we read under option 2, file a petition to intervene, and then it says what the intervener has a right to do, you may file a petition to intervene by email and contact. Your concern is that someone might construe that as if I email them this petition to intervene, I'm automatically become an intervener.
That, and also that if I just email them a blank statement saying I want to intervene, I haven't met the requirements of intervention, which is to state the reason I want to intervene, my standing to intervene, etc.
Okay.
It may be that if you really want to make intervention accessible to pro se interveners, and I'll leave that to the commission, it may be that you need an online form if you're trying to do something like this. Okay. Because it says, here's your name, state your name, state your address, all the things that are required in the regulations, explain why you want to intervene, and go on so forth down the road. Because right now, somebody could email on February 14th, say, I want to be in this case. The utility could move to dismiss them for not stating sufficient grounds for intervention. Unless the commission, accepted an amendment, I mean, they're not in.
Yeah, I'm reading under 103.804. Like I said, I know I'm probably bothering you, but I really am trying to get deeper, making sure that I understand your point. It's under H. A person who files a petition to intervene in a proceeding before the commission, as provided in Regulation 103.825, and after such petition is approved by the commission or presiding officer. So, a part of what you mentioned, Mr. Terani, with some of your observation, could it be a part of your observation be cured by including some information that basically says petitions to intervene must be approved by the commission?
That and what is, and again, this is starting to get big for a notice, but what is required to successfully intervene? Or, what is required by the rule for intervention substantively?
Mm-hmm. But we don't want to make the notice too long, so maybe the.
That's why I'm saying there ought to be a reference. If you're interested in intervening, look at this page, or fill out this form, whatever.
Or see the commission's regulations, because the commission doesn't want to become somebody's lawyer. So,
Well, that too.
Yeah.
So, after all, you are practicing law pro se. I see Ms. Powers lifting her hand.
Okay, Ms. Powers. Ms. Terani, don't go anywhere because I have an exercise I want to, I think. Okay, Ms. Powers?
Yeah, I just wanted to share Kevin's perspective on that. We hadn't interpreted that section of the template to mean intervention. We simply had interpreted it to be an avenue for which a consumer or any member of the public could submit a comment. So to the extent that the commission does want to entertain inviting more members of the public to actually intervene in that legal sense, I guess I wanted to share we hadn't interpreted it in that way. And I would want to get my attorneys involved and really be able to provide more substantive comments if that was the commission's intention with that aspect of the public notice.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Powers. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Terani. I've been marking my copy of Mr. Hall's proposed notice. I'll get there just a second. So I'm going to return to the camera I was using earlier. I want to ask you, first of all, you'll see on the document that I have about the newspaper notice, and Mr. Hall and I will have this same exchange, but I wanted to use his document as a guide. Since we're also.
Can we back up to the intervention just for a minute?
Yes, sir, please.
I'm looking specifically at 103-825-3, which are the requirements for a petition to intervene. The facts of which the natures, from which the nature of the petitioner's alleged right or interest can be determined, the grounds of the proposed intervention, and the position of the petitioner in the proceeding. I don't think this notice would alert somebody they need to state those.
I agree. There's nothing about about what's required in filing a petition to intervene in the notice, Mr. Terani. I agree with you. But
I'm just saying we need to address it. We can't solve it today, maybe. If we're going to have that, it needs to be thought out a little bit.
Yeah, I think we do need to reference it. And Mr. I forgot to bring my Title 1 in the hearing room with me. But there's certain things I think that are still required under the APA that we have to include in these notices. And one is how people participate, the means by which they participate. I'll pull it up on my laptop. So, and I think we have to give people a deadline and tell them this is how long you have to intervene and the means by which you do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we were trying to accomplish here. Give them the deadline to intervene, and then also, well, how do you accomplish that? That was it. Now, I've made a note regarding our discussions earlier, a few minutes ago, about maybe SEEP Commission's, Public Service Commission's regulations regarding petitions to intervene. I made that note on mine. But I just, like I said, I wanted to be clear about your concerns.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let me go to the camera. Melissa, is that okay, Melissa? I just want to ask him a couple of questions. I'm on the top part first, right where you are, Melissa, right there. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Terani, I'm going to talk to you, if you don't mind, and Mr. Hall, similar questions. This first set is just regarding newspaper notifications, okay? So let's just use this. This is a rate case. Use this.
Is this Mr. Hall's notice or?
This is Mr. Hall's notice. It includes my notes. But I'm trying to get an idea. I want us to talk about the commission looking at just notices for customers going forward, and then notices for the newspaper and the type of information. This is where I'm going with this. So you'll see what I've highlighted here: be heard, read carefully, notice of filing, and then the section on why is the notice important, complete rate case, the information regarding the hearing, and then I stop there. Is there anything, what would be your input regarding any of the highlighted information that I've included as it relates to including that information in a newspaper notice? What would be your position?
Generally speaking, my position is that could be the newspaper notice along with some instructions. Yes, it could be the newspaper notice along with just whatever is statutorily required. So if we're required to give notice of the hearing, we can give notice of the hearing. And But in terms of the substance of what you're telling the customers, I think that generally could be the notice.
Okay. All right. So,
No problem with it.
all right. So, all right. And then on the next page, I just highlighted for the newspaper, of course, where the hearing, you know, I think we would have to include some reference to the intervention and when the hearing is scheduled, like the merits hearing is scheduled, not
The
just.
merits here,
Yes, sir.
right.
All right.
But not necessarily the public hearings, because honestly, you know, you might have public hearings added as you go along sometimes. Generally speaking, recently they've been scheduled before the notice goes out, but I mean, that's not necessarily the case.
But there wouldn't be, I think, you would stop then for the newspaper and not include who can I talk to about this notice. That wouldn't be in the newspaper. Just the intervention dates, the merits hearing date, and then perhaps the information. You said not the customer public hearing date. But
Well, you know, I'm not firm on that, but I'm just wondering if it's necessary. My thing would be one big, you know, how can I learn more about this case? Click www, you know, whatever.
okay.
And it could be we could design a hyperlink. It could be www.2021-324-WS and notice or something like that. That would actually, you know, we could design a web address for each case that would take the customer to an expanded public notice and then let them visit the docket.
All right. So then I also have my second note in here. It says, about the deadline to register. So this would be for the customer public notice. You see at the bottom of the page right here. You start down here. I think your comments indicate that you think that this information should just be on the website and or on the voice recording if someone registers by calling in. That it doesn't need to be in the notices sent to. We don't need as much information. Am I summarizing your comments correctly?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, just tell them they've got to register by Friday, March 18th, and, you know, either by emailing X or by, you know, 1, 2, 3. That could be in one line, not bullet points. But I don't think we need to say your name, telephone number. I mean, they can provide that.
All right. What about this information that we have about the commission will listen to and think about your comments. It will not make comments or answer questions. Each witness's testimony is limited to 3 minutes.
I think that should be provided at registration.
Okay. And it's testimonies under oath and a party may object. All that's at registration.
I think so.
All right. Hold on. Let me look. I think.
So then, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we've discussed, you may proceed, Mr. Terrain.
Well, I was just gonna say, so then when will the PSC hear the utilities case and how can I participate? It seems to me like we've already told them these things.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking, how can I participate?
Well, I mean, if we're going to give a notice of the public hearings and say we're going to have public hearings at such and such a place, and you can, you know, register to speak in such a way, why are we then doing how can I participate in this case? I mean, we could add a line to somewhere up top. You can also file letters of protest by emailing whatever. And that maybe should be letters of comment. I mean, some people may be in favor of it.
Okay.
But I don't know that it's necessary to state once more that the PSC is going to hear this case on April 4th, because we've already done that. And I don't know that it's necessary to tell them they can. I just don't know that the rest of this is necessary for a newspaper ad.
Okay, may I ask you something then?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we've said that we have to tell people under the APA how they can intervene as a party. What if we, gosh, what about Mr. Hall's document where he says, would you like to provide comments? Would you like to testify before the, because see, they can testify also as a party, not just as a public witness.
Well, the notice of intervention has to do with not only customers, but anybody who wants to intervene, right?
That's right.
So we could craft intervention language that's very similar to what he has here and what the commission uses. But it doesn't need to be, every time you indent, you add spaces and all of that, you add cost. And also it becomes harder to print these notices. So all I'm saying is we could consolidate that. And we've already discussed giving public participation. Again, you could consolidate that. You could put a letter, put another box under, would you like to provide comments? Just have a third option, which is file a protest letter. Because right now, what we're saying is, would you like to provide comments? And then we go back a page later and say, how can I participate? Well, you can file comments, or you can file a petition to intervene. I think it's redundant, and I don't object to it in the bill insert as long as we can keep it at 2 pages. But in the newspaper, frankly, it's a tree that's dropping in the forest. I don't think anybody's reading these things.
Right.
But we ought to still make them clear and concise and just tell them you can learn more at the commission's website.
And I think, give me 1 second, let me pull a notice.
Maybe you could even do one of those things where you put your phone on it.
Well, here's my concern. I think the intent where it says, would you like to provide comments, I really appreciate all the work the Department of Consumer Affairs has done. I would modify that a little bit because they're really not providing comments, they're providing testimony for these public hearings. So I think some form of that would need to stay for when we schedule customer public hearings. Okay, and then how can I participate? I know our original question in one of the notices issued this year, the end of last year, how can I participate in the company's case? And then the other question regarding here it is. We just asked the question, when and where is the customer public hearing? That's the question in a notice that was issued in the latter part of December. Because when and where is the customer public hearing? Because they are providing testimony, they're not providing comments.
At the public hearing, I would say the public comments or letters of protest emailed to the commissioner, not testimony. We wouldn't want to give that.
Yes, sir. And that's under option 1. How can I participate?
Right.
Yeah. So I'll talk to Mr. Hall about I'm making a note now about the provide comments, because those are not comments. That's testimony at a customer public hearing, and I'll ask him about maybe making option 1. How can I file comments under option 1?
Not to rewrite Mr. Hall's notice, but what if you turned, would you like to provide comments? What if that was replaced with how can I participate? That's on the front.
All
And
right.
then and then you had added a third box there that dealt with with filing the comments at the public, like the letters of protest in the docket. And maybe even a 4th line that talked about if you want to look into intervention, or if you want to intervene, you need to do whatever we decide you got to do.
Okay. So how can I
And
participate?
that would obviate the need for the rest of the notice, right?
How can I participate would be one heading. How can I file comments? Another heading. How can I participate as a party in this case for the petition to intervene?
No, what I'm saying is take that big but he's gotten 14 points, the second heading, that now says, would you like to provide comments?
Okay,
Replace it with, how can I participate in this case?
all right,
Which is what he's got on the second page.
okay,
And then provide the options under there,
oh,
with dates and times of public hearings,
all right,
file comments in the docket, petition to intervene
oh,
with the deadline.
oh. Okay,
Jocelyn, if I may, I'll just go ahead and interject here. I think that's fine. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the areas we struggled with the most with revising the commission's template and the Kilo example was that, we're trying to convey information about three different things. Filing, participating in a public comment hearing, protest letters, and intervening in the actual case.
okay, so you and Mr. Terraini, hold on one second, I'm gonna show you my diagram again, make sure that we have captured what you're recommending. Please.
And while you're doing that, I want to commend Consumer Affairs for taking this on, because I'm not trying to be critical at all. They actually put something in front of us we can work with.
Well, I appreciate it. While y'all are referring to it as Mr. Hall's document, I'm gonna give any credit to our public information and education folks who unfortunately couldn't be on the call today. So.
Okay, Mr. Terraini and Mr. Hall. So we are right now, right here, as you can see my notes. This language would be replaced with, how can I participate in this case, question mark. And so this information would basically be beginning with the word customers and ending over here with this code would be basically option 1. Option 2 would be listed right after that, and option 2 will be option 1 here, which is file public comments, so on and so forth. And then option 3 would be listed under option 2, right here. And option 3 includes the intervention information. Did I capture that correctly?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah, I believe so. The only thing I might add is that I guess they have all three options. So you can do
C, A, B, C. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not either or.
Right.
Yeah, so this, hold on a second. Okay. I did have option 2. I had option 1 there. I could have left it there because I have, if you can see my writing, I had option 1, option 2, option 3. I've now scratched B and C here and put A here. So option 1 or option A, option 2 or option B, option 3 or option C. Is that what you were referring to?
I think so.
Okay. Mr. Terraini, I've been asked to ask you, would you file a draft of what you're proposing?
Glad to.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe Mr. Hall and I could talk it over too, and I could collaborate on something.
Sure.
We'd appreciate it. Okay, so I was on the newspaper notice. I think I asked you everything I wanted to about the newspaper notice. I think that I would want us to use what you all have told us about, Mr. Terraini, your exchange with me, and then I'll talk to Mr. Hall in just a second about what you think should be included in the newspaper notice, and then we send that back to everyone who's participating in this docket to get feedback on the newspaper notice to make sure we've captured what you all, or if you have further comments, you can comment regarding those.
Yeah.
All right, did you have anything else, Mr. Terraini?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hall,
Yes,
thank you for your patience.
no problem.
You may proceed with whatever you would like to tell us.
Okay, yeah, I think mostly it can be kind of answering questions or comments that have already been addressed, but, a couple things I'll say is with the notice that we provided, again, this is from our Public Information Education Division, who are, put out numerous publications and communications with consumers, every day, every week. This is what they do. So as an attorney, I won't pretend to understand everything that is in here, but hopefully I can, get their message across as they're at another event today. The biggest thing, I guess, as an overall comment on what we did with using the Kiowa example is we did try to retain that structure as much as possible. So if there's information that's still in there or language that's still in there, we're not saying that has to be. We just our main goal is to try to get this down to 2 pages and to improve the readability and comprehension of the document from customers who might receive it. That said, I think, and again, so I would say they're suggestions, not requirements. But the one thing I always hear from our public information folks is this, and I think it goes to the heart of what we did, is what is most important to the customer here. So if we deleted something, if we reworded it, combined it, it was with that in mind, what is most important. So I guess that being said, I'll just try to run through, a few of the comments that have come up already and that we have said in our comment letter. I think just to font, we've made numerous comments in this docket regarding different bill inserts and other matters that we do think 12-point font is important at a minimum. The headings, again, to draw attention to certain areas, can be larger to the extent they can still fit on 2 pages. We think they should be larger if that becomes an issue. You could print a novel on those 2 pages with the font small enough, and that's not going to do any good. So the point is to have customers see the document in their bill with their bill inserts and understand the importance. We think that information should go early on. That's one reason why we shorten it instead of using the long, the official docket title. I think the most important thing is that the company is requesting to, in the case of a rate case, to change their rates. That could probably be revised to increase rates. I think that would probably get folks' attention pretty quickly. Just kind of scrolling through here. We do think one of the differences, and it's been alluded to or directly in some cases by some of the parties, is a link to the complete rate schedule. In the case of Kiowa, they have numerous rates depending on the size of meters and pipes. And again, I don't think that's important to most customers. That can be provided in a separate link. That may need to be a separate document or extracting a document from an application so that there's a link. When a customer clicks that link, it goes directly to the summary of the rate changes. And we believe a second link could be provided to all of the filings. So I'm just trying to address some of your comments if I can. The issue with bold, I think sometimes can be maybe too much of a good thing. Talking to our public information folks again, bold to draw their attention to the section, and then below that maybe the information doesn't necessarily need to be in bold. I think that was just a general summary. Again, shortening, combining, rewording certain sentences in order to get that Flesch-Kincaid reading level down. There are other tools other than Flesch-Kincaid that can be used for that. The more I've started using it through this exercise and some others, it actually becomes kind of fun. You can go sentence by sentence, document by document, however you want, and you really start to realize how, especially as attorneys, we tend to write long sentences, use bigger words. So I think it's really looking at length of sentences, number of syllables per word, and you can convey the same information in a much simpler manner, just with a little bit of it takes a little time, a little effort, but it can lower that grade level. We think that is important. I think that's all I have, Justin. If you, I'd be happy to address your specific questions, but just as a general overview of the document we submitted.
Yeah, I just had some. Was your you and your team's recommendation regarding the change in the caption, was that just for rate cases? Because I'm concerned
Again,
about.
I think a lot of this has to be done on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, we're using rate cases. That's what we have been more involved in, since, coming back to the commission. And just not to pick on Mr. Turini's client, but this is because this is very typical of any caption, but the original caption for that notice of filing was the application of Keel Island Utility to file proposed changes in rates, charges, classifications, and or regulations for water and sewer service.
Mm-hmm.
What's important to customers? Change in rates.
And you don't think by legally, from a lawyer standpoint, that it's important to include that caption anywhere else, that it doesn't appear as if there is just a change in rates if we don't reference that caption anywhere else?
I think, it could be changed. I did not look into, APA requirements here. I don't think that's probably in there though, but I believe we put under maybe the third bullet point, or why is this important? Any other important information? Again, in these documents, we could see you might have a dozen tariff language changes. I don't think that's important to go into this notice, particularly if we're going to link to the full application or the full document.
Okay. I have, Ms. Thomas, would you display number 2? Is it possible? You can't? That's okay, I can use the camera. Mr. Hall, hold on a second, I'm going back to my other camera.
Jocelyn, while you're doing that, I'll just say regarding the information that's conveyed, I think that could be something, like I said, on a case-by-case basis, but in conjunction with the utility or with any other parties that have intervened at that point in time in the case. We, to the extent that we're a party to a case, we'd be happy to point out things that we think are important for the notice that customers might be interested in.
Okay. I think what you're saying is feedback after we, sometimes we have issues. That's one of the reasons why we started this procedural schedule issue last year when we started talking about the regulations, because I think I expressed to everyone who was present, the staff has at times had issues securing facilities, locations for customer public hearings. And so staff started to send a proposed schedule once we received, I'm just talking about rate cases, to parties in the case. Because after we receive the application, the clerk's office has a limited amount of time to issue all that information in a notice. It's pretty quick turnaround, in my opinion, especially if we're having to schedule customer public hearings. So we're trying to balance that, and you mentioned the feedback. If we are also, maybe it will work better now since we've asked the parties to actually, right now we're operating in a virtual setting. That won't always be the case. So that's why we ask for the parties to comment at the time, closer period of time when the letter of intent is filed, so that we can discuss or address locations which don't include the commission's headquarters, locations in communities. We could already have talked to the facility, so on and so forth, so that we could perhaps accommodate the additional feedback regarding draft notices. But if we're trying to secure locations and issue a notice and get feedback within that limited amount of time that's allowed in the regulation, it becomes difficult to comply with the regulation. I hope everybody's kind of understanding what I'm saying. That's why we wanted the feedback when we send you the proposed schedule, because as I said, I don't anticipate we're always going to operate in a virtual setting. The commission will eventually have to go back out into the community to hear testimony. In part, I mean, I'm sure the virtual feature will always be there, but I don't think that the commission's we're going to operate like we did in 2020 and 2021 and part of 2022 forever. Anyway,
May I
yes,
make a modest suggestion? Um, I think that exchange with the staff initially is good, but if there would be some way the commission could provide in its communications policy, or maybe it's in the, I don't know, but that would allow for a conference call, maybe with the parties and the staff to work these schedules out, I think we could do it a lot faster. Because, I mean, what's happening now is we're filing, we get an email from staff saying, let us know these dates work, and then they usually don't. And we scramble around and we have to get back to the staff. I think if we could get, I'm not suggesting anything ex parte, but if we could get to something where we're just discussing a purely procedural matter with the clerk's office with all parties present, I think that might be very helpful.
now you're
Or at least we have that ability.
are you referencing rate cases?
Yeah.
Okay, and are you recommending that we have those conference calls at the time the application is filed or at the time the letter of intent is filed?
I don't know that you have to have them all the time, but if we had the option, I think it might be useful.
At the time the letter of intent is filed or at the time the application is
No,
filed?
at the time of the application is filed, because when the letter of intent is filed, I mean, there's no requirement that that case is going to be filed in 30 days.
Right, right.
So
It's just,
it really needs to be at the time of application.
and what,
It
yes,
could be before.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it might be something the parties need to initiate.
yeah,
But
like-
right now, I don't think we feel like we have the ability to do that.
I think the only point I was making is securing locations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Securing locations after the application is filed. Because the clock, once we've accepted that application, the 6-month time limit starts, in addition to the clerk's office responsibility to issue the notice within a specified amount of time. So what I'm referring to for these rate cases, when we do return to visiting, the commission having customer public hearings in communities, that's the constraint that we have, because sometimes I thought I talked about this last year. We have difficulty securing if either the facility, and that's why I was asking. I don't think my point is clear. I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
So anyway, Mr. Hall. Oh, y'all have it. Okay, Mr. Hall. I just had a question. This notice is generally speaking, this notice is not 2 pages long. Can you scroll down for me? Well, yeah, front and back. But I think overall, yeah, thank you. Are you recommending in your comments, I'm not gonna talk in detail about this case at all, but this is the end of the page for this notice, Ms. Thomas? What you have on the screen? Okay, that's the end. Thank you so much. Structurally, format-wise, you would recommend that we use basically the formatting that you recommend in your filing. Would you scroll up to the first page too, please? And then perhaps instead, I think there's more than one question here, perhaps using, one question instead of the 2, format-wise.
Yeah, I think format-wise, we do find that kind of that question and answer format is helpful. We find that not putting too much information while we split those boxes up. It sort of kind of ran together. It was certainly an improvement from what had been done in the past, but we think just separating it out a little bit. And I will, this a little bit off topic, but as far as when you were at the very end there, who can I talk about this notice? I think very important. I did want to add, I know we're not talking about newspaper notices right now, but I do think at a minimum, the newspaper notice should have the Public Service Commission's phone number.
Okay, we'd probably put all of them, because we're trying to deter people from calling here, because we can't talk about pending cases with the public. If that makes sense.
I understand.
And I think that's why we listed, like when we do that, we list the PSC's number last, because if they call us, other than telling them, here's where the information is on DMS, yes, the public hearing is scheduled this date, yes, this is the petition to intervene date, we can't offer much due to ex parte rules.
I understand. I mean, I guess my opinion would be that most of the information that's in this notice, that if we're trying to cut it out for a newspaper notice, otherwise could be provided without violating the ex parte rules. And we'd certainly be fine having our contact information in it. Obviously, we won't always be a party to the cases and may not, fully understand, some of the cases that the notice is issued for, but be happy to direct consumers to the appropriate parties if we need to.
Okay. All right, let me see what else I had. Okay, thank you, Ms. Thomas. I'm through with that. And I think you said you wouldn't object if we did include, maybe not if it's a rate case, if the caption of the case, Mr. Hall, is not at the top, but that it's somewhere in the notice. So that customers understand that perhaps the case is more than just about a change in rates.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's not a problem. All right, and then the legal reference. You don't have a problem with us, of course, including that in any notice we issue.
As far as what statutes or regulations the application was filed pursuant to?
Yeah, and I think it's required under our regulations and under the APA.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's a requirement, we didn't mean to suggest that it should be removed.
Okay.
And in the example we submitted, it could have fit with the 2 pages, but again, just thinking about what's most important to consumers, I don't see very many of them going to look up those statutes and regulations.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's a legal notice, that's where I'm going with this. If it's required by the APA, do you all object to us placing it in any notices issued by the commission?
Oh, no, of course not. If it's required.
All right, now, Mr. Hall, regarding Mr. Terrani's comments about the instructions as to how to pre-register, I can show you that again on the camera.
I think that's a great way to cut down on information here. I would say, just kind of looking at it here, I agree with what he said as far as if someone contacts you and wants to register, then you can of course say, well, you need to provide your name, address, and everything else on there. Obviously, I think the 3 ways that they can register is important. I do think it might be important to say that all testimony will be given under oath, and will become part of the record, just so they understand before registering. But as long as a customer or someone that's signing up to speak has receives that information somehow, I think that's fine.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm marking up my document. Just want to make sure I've captured your comments correctly. Okay, Mr. Hall, do you see down here at the bottom, beginning with the sentence, if you would? So I've struck all of that at the bottom of this page. You don't think that these instructions have to be included in or should be included in the notice? We can just put it on the website or on the voicemail message when they call.
So I guess to that, I did not understand that there was a voicemail. So basically, if someone calls that number to register, they're able to provide all that information in a voicemail.
Yeah, they are.
Sure.
We're able to capture it. There's a tool that the voicemail captures and then transcribes it into an email message. Now, my question here though, deadline to pre-register. If we don't include the ways to pre-register.
No, I think the ways to register has to be included.
Okay, give me a second.
Everything.
Okay.
That the name, telephone number, address. then again, so if you're just saying you can email, they're not gonna know what information to provide, but as, Mr. Trini suggested, that maybe if there was a reply or, an automatic reply that says, you need to, now provide this information, thank you for requesting to register, please provide this information.
Yeah, because if they complete the survey, the information will be there. If they call, they will hear Randy Erskine's message that says, please leave your name, telephone number, and physical address. But if they just email, we're not going to get the correct information.
Right.
Thank you for making that point. Okay, and moving on to the next page. Thank you, Ms. Purvis. Okay, so we would delete. Please note you will be called in the order in which you speak, all that. The commission will try to contact you up to 3 times. So we're gonna have to include all that information in the voicemail message and also in, excuse me, y'all, excuse me, Melissa, in the survey. Because
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think it is important information for the customer to have once they've registered. So again, logistically, how do you do that?
now I
If
like
they're
that
not-
idea.
Yeah.
You said we can put that in the response email and text message to the customer. I like that strategy. I like that. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, I think, because again, I think the point of here is to let them know they can register, that they are able to provide comments, and then give the parameters of that, and understanding that obviously they'll be called. You're going to try to call 3 times. The time limit, is limited to 3 minutes, so they don't prepare extensive comments before, just to be told, at the start that they've got to cut it down to 3.
Okay.
And
So
again, how do you do that when they've registered by phone? I'm not sure, but as long as that information is conveyed, I'm fine with it not being in the minutes.
Yeah, when they've registered by phone, I think we still ask them for an email address. Telephone number, we ask them for a telephone number. So we must communicate with them. We have to communicate with them orally when they don't have, because we've had those instances where a customer does not have internet access or an email address. So we've just dealt with it. It has to be dealt with verbally. All right. And so from there, so we would definitely have to include, these are the 3 ways to pre-register, and then we would end with all testimony we would give it under oath. That's important to be included. You see,
I think
you
so.
say leave this in the notice. Okay.
I think so. To the extent it's essentially a single line, it doesn't seem to be something that would cause a page number issue.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Mr. Hall. I think what we're going to do too is, Mr. Hall, how do you propose? Let's go back to Mr. Terani. This is a more detailed question. Do we need to have another short workshop for rate cases? How? So that every electrical utility company, every natural gas company, water, wastewater company is providing the same typical customer, average customer use impact information, and the same methodology is being used for all the information that is provided. I don't think we can do that today, but I do think we're going to have to come back and talk about that, not unless you all want to submit some proposals. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Mr. Terani brought that up. How do we calculate the average? I think that's extremely important information. That's really what I think a lot of customers want to know when they look at the bill. How is this going to impact me? So what's the methodology we're going to use for that?
I don't want to speak for the utilities, but I feel like, from being involved in the rate cases, that most companies, no matter what service they're providing, can generally say what their average customer uses. Seen it, and it does vary. I know, for water cases, we've seen, I think between 3,000 and 6,000. To that extent, now, think your other question about what they're providing in their filings, that might get more into your overall reg review, reg change issues, but hopefully that most of them would be willing to provide it voluntarily.
Okay, so what you're saying at this point is when we do ask for that information, we tell the parties that we're asking the utility for the information. He mentioned that, for example, the water charge. Would the utility need to be specific about that this is based on this base charge plus this level of consumption for the volumetric charge in their response to what the average customer uses?
I think so. I mean, just to the extent that a customer knows how much water they use, they'll at least have a reference point. And again, you could, our 4 or 5 lines here in our example could, easily become 10 the more you try to, expand that. But I think as long as we're saying what a typical customer, if it's 3 gallons, 5,000 gallons, if that information's in the notice, I think that's sufficient. And again, at least in our example, there would be a link to
The complete rate schedule? Okay. I'm personally, as a state employee, I'm putting a lot of stock into what you're saying about what customers want to see. I've seen, I think, customers who have different interests, especially when we've attended night hearings, public hearings, who have different interests on different levels. But if you think that's sufficient, just that one, that's what we'll ask for, Mr. Hall.
I think that, so I could show it side by side, but if maybe after, offline, if you look at what was submitted or what was sent out in the Kiowa case.
Okay.
And it was called residential water service charges in the notice that's sent. So we use the commission's language, to the extent possible. So right, if you want to call it base facility charge, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 size meters. They're all result in a roughly 15.17 to 15.9% increase. I don't know what meter size I have in my house.
Okay.
I could probably figure out pretty quickly how much water I use, but again, I don't know that that's important. Important, but we changed that to a 1 line in our example that said residential water service charge increase averaging. So in that case, again, they were all roughly 15.18%. The base facility charge is a little bit different. I think the water usage gets a little bit easier when you can say 3,000 gallons. And again, that might be where some input from the respective utilities might come in, be helpful.
May I interject just for a minute?
Yes, sir.
Again, I just raised that question because I didn't want a notice to go out and then have somebody complain that the average was somehow misleading. But we do frequently do this in our rate cases. We'll say the average residential consumer using 6,000 gallons a month is going to experience this bill impact. And like Mr. Hall was talking about the meters, there's always one class of residential consumers. They're going to probably be on 2-inch meters, and I mean they're everybody, and everybody else is kind of an oddball, the shack at the golf course, whatever. So we know who that average consumer is. We can have a pretty good idea of it, and that may just. But I guess I don't know that you're going to be able to prescribe it in a formula, just because what's right about Kiowa may be different for, say, a Condor Utilities or something like that. And so it may be that we just propose, that Kiowa provides you that information and says, we have X number of customers. The average customer is with a 2-inch meter using X thousand gallons a month is going to use this. Or you could say the company says. I'm not quite sure how to get it across. I am fully supportive of what Consumer Affairs is proposing in simple 1-line, things that say you can expect your bill to go up this month, because the rest of the stuff's not going to apply to the vast majority.
Jocelyn, this is Chad Burgess for Dominion. I think you posed the question of whether or not another workshop was necessary. to deal with rate cases. And I'm of the opinion that I don't think another workshop is necessarily needed. You may recall back last year, I reminded the staff that there's a commission order out there that speaks to a utility being required to produce a notice simultaneously with their application when they're seeking to adjust rates. And that's designed to give this commission assistance in populating the template that we're discussing here. I agree with Mr. Torini. I think it should be left up to the individual utility as to how that utility wants to communicate with its customers with respect to what the rate impact will be. There are different measures for different utilities, and certainly what is good for a water or wastewater utility may not necessarily work for an electric utility or a gas utility. So I think my suggestion would be whenever the company is proposing the notice to accompany their application to adjust their rates, either up or down, whatever the case may be, that the commission staff could ask the utility, please communicate with us with respect to how you measure the impact on a customer. For example, for DESC and its retail electric operations, we do that on 1,000 kilowatt hour basis. And that way customers can easily know what the ultimate impact is going to be on them from a monthly perspective, assuming that the commission approves the application that's been presented by the utility.
Okay, would you repeat that? You said for the clerk's office to ask, please communicate with us, and then do you mind? Do you remember?
I might have to get to play it back, but I'll
okay, never mind.
But to have the utility communicate, or excuse me, have the commission instruct the utility to communicate to the staff with the manner in which it would communicate a rate change or describe a rate change to its customers. And again, for example, for Dominion Energy, South Carolina's retail electric operations perspectives, we do that on 1,000 kilowatt hour basis. I'm not sure exactly if that's what Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress uses, but I know that's been a common, easy metric for the commission to follow, as well as our customers, in understanding what the impact is going to be on their bill on a monthly basis, assuming that they use 1,000 kilowatt hours for that particular month.
Okay, so basically what you were saying is for some type of communication from the utility to the commission as to how the utility indicates to its customers a rate change.
Yeah,
the
that's right.
effect of a rate change.
That's right. So again, water and wastewater may have their own way of doing it, and I think it would be appropriate for them to present to you the way they do it.
Okay.
Just like the electric utility has the manner in which they calculate it, I think it'd be appropriate for them to provide that information to you. For DESC, I'm pretty confident that in our application, we typically include a little paragraph that kind of spells out what the impact would be on a customer who uses 1,000 kilowatt hours on a monthly basis.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Hall, let me see if there's anything else. Okay, everybody give me a second, please. Okay, so I was speaking to some of our clerk's office employees, and they just were mentioning to me some concerns about just the way that we formatted some of the questions in the notice, even in the notice that we've talked about today. And I informed them that we will create another template and publish it for you all, but we just want to be consistent with the wording in the notice. And then the second question that I received was about the proposed notice and whether or not the impact on customers, on an average customer's bill, whether or not that's in the proposed notice that's sent to the commission. And I indicated to them the order that Mr. Burgess referred to, that information is not specifically mentioned in the that order, but we need to see what we need to do so that we're not having to request that on a case-by-case basis, that it's automatically included in the proposed notices that are filed with the commission. Okay, Mr. Hall, I want to make sure that I've addressed all the questions I have. Oh, and the newspaper notice, once again, I think we're going to definitely have to provide you all with another template for a newspaper notice, just to get your feedback if you all don't mind. Okay, Mr. Hall, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. Just again, we appreciate the commission's efforts in this and recognize it's not an easy task. So thank you for taking our comments.
No problem. Thank you for you and your team for all of your work. Thank you. Mr. Roof?
Thank you. I'm John Roof here on behalf of AARP South Carolina today. I really want to express our appreciation for this whole process, and we seem to be moving towards agreement on a much more consumer-friendly notice. We support the consumer advocate's suggestions, particularly around fonts and simpler language. Clearly, there is a tension between having a two-page notice and a font, a minimum of 12 point, which we think is important, particularly for old people like me with diminished visual acuity, which is to call myself a blind old person. My concern is that if you make it too flexible on the minimum font size, you don't end up where Peg Fox was suggesting, like maybe 11.5, but over time, creep sets in, and pretty soon we're publishing these in agate type. The answer then is to focus on, what's minimally required by the law and what do consumers really need to understand. I appreciate the two-pager requirement because I agree if they get much longer, nobody's going to read them. On the newspaper publication question, and I think there's a political consideration which should be understood, which is that, well, maybe nobody's reading them. These kind of public notices, their primary function seems to be keeping small newspapers alive. And that's a laudable goal. I don't know whether it's the PSC's goal, but there will be resistance if you were to too much slash them. But I agree, the example that Consumer Affairs put in is practically unreadable to me. There needs to be clarity, as probably the only person on this call who has ever actually been a pro se intervener in commission proceedings. And I did mine before there was email. So it was a somewhat different process, but you really need to give notice somehow that if you're going to intervene pro se, there are pleading requirements for that intervention, as well as the notice to the other parties. I think in the language that was presented, the question of, there's two ways to do it. Well, you could say by mailing or emailing and at least eliminate a line there. But those are our principal concerns. We seem to be moving in very good directions on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roof. I do want to ask you something. So, starting with where you, one of your last statements regarding the intervention, how do you feel about including language, see Commission's rule regulations regarding requirements for petitions to intervene?
Well, normally I would be hesitant about those sort of referrals, but nobody is going to effectively intervene who can't handle that.
Okay, so you're neutral as it relates to a reference to the Commission's regulations?
Yes.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you for your comments, especially about the newspaper notice. We're going to, as I said, we're going to work here very shortly on getting everybody another draft for the newspaper. I have something in mind myself, which is just basically a question and not even a question and answer. Name of case, docket number, hearing date, just very short, link to docket, and maybe as Mr. Hall mentioned in his recommendation, link to, if it's a rate case, link to the rate schedule. And then maybe the section about who can I talk to. I think we also, though, have to include the hearing date, the intervention deadlines. I think that has to be in the newspaper notice. But we will send those out. I don't mean to prolong this, but I'd rather get the comments now, and a couple of years from now, there'll probably be some more changes, depending on where the whole world is by that time. But I think we do need to at least address the newspaper notice in the near term.
If I could make one other point too, with respect to the average bill.
Yes, sir.
I mean, for electric, although clearly it's probably typically much higher in the winter than it is in the summer, or vice versa. But on, 1,000 kilowatt hours is not a bad estimate of the average bill.
Yes, sir.
But for gas customers, it's very different. For a goodly part of the year, if you're a gas customer, you're basically paying the basic facilities charge. And the real question the consumer has is, not what's my average bill, but can I pay the gas bill come winter time? And so there should be more of a seasonal focus on that. I first took my first statistics course probably 60 years ago. And, the first thing they teach you about averages is about the fellow who stepped in the river that averaged 3 inches deep and drowned in the 8-foot hole in the middle.
Okay. So you think, tell me, Mr. Roof, you're trying to tell me that the reference for electric, as far as you're concerned, 1,000 kilowatt hours a month is probably fine, but maybe it could be modified perhaps for a gas company because of the potential for a customer to use more in the wintertime, gas in the winter, than in the summer. Did I capture?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and an average bill is just deceptive in that case in terms of what does this really mean?
Okay. I was going to ask you something, Mr. Roof, but people will probably get offended. I was just asking if we could make you an ad hoc member of our notice committee here to review, just to get your feedback on. But we can. We'll see how that progresses, because I like your point about that. Every case is going to be different, and then how the information is presented, which is what I was kind of Mr. Terani started the conversation. I probably thought about it in a different way than he meant about the methodology, because what I don't want to happen in any case is that a customer relies on that information and they said, I thought you meant this, because there's no the justification behind the numbers, the percentages and or the dollar amount is not provided to them. And that's why I was asking those type questions. Okay, Mr. Roof, thank you so much. Unless you have something else you want to tell us.
No, I think that covered it.
Okay, thank you so much. Office of Regulatory Staff. General Counsel Huber, there you are.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you for being so patient.
I appreciate it. Mr. Masters had to leave for another meeting, so he's not able to join me for this part. But again, I'd like to echo what others have said. We appreciate the efforts of the commission staff to improve commission notices and also try to balance the many factors involved in preparing those notices. We did not file any further written comments ahead of this workshop, and I'll be brief. I don't really have any further comments right now. The only thing I will mention is I think it's important to keep in mind that not all customers have internet access, and that the use of web links is a useful tool, but I think it's important to be strategic about it. And I'm not saying that any of the drafts, but certainly at this point, don't use them strategically. But I think it's important to keep in mind that not everybody has internet access. And I think you and Mr. Hall covered this, but a good example is how to sign up for a public hearing. I think that there does need to be enough information in the print notice so that somebody who does not have internet access knows how can do that. That's really all I have. Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you so much, General Counsel Huber, and seriously, thank you for your patience. So everybody, if we bother you with all these drafts we've given you, I'm sorry. But we're going to try to. We're never going to be perfect at the commission, but what we intend to do is take your comments again. We will continue to operate, and we're going to modify. Mr. Hall, we're going to use your template to modify that we will, based on the other comments that we received today. And if something is really bothering you about what we've included, please let us know. We will post that in the docket. And then we will also post a proposed newspaper notice, which I don't think it will take as long for us to discuss that if you care to participate in another short workshop. But we're going to provide that opportunity. And then we'll move on to something else. Does anybody else have any other questions? So our action items after this meeting will be for commission staff to publish a revised notice template based on using the Department of Consumer Affairs' template as the baseline. And we will incorporate the concerns that were addressed today. We will also provide you with a proposed newspaper notice and also have another small workshop regarding the newspaper notice. Ms. Fox and Mr. Turner, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, Jocelyn, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Ms. Powers?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Thanks, Jocelyn. We don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terani?
No, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hall?
That's all. Thank you.
That's all. Mr. Roof?
Thank you.
All right. And finally, General Counsel Huber, if you don't have anything else?
Nothing further from ORS. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you for participating today, and we'll see you next time.